He took the blast for an alien child. Now her mother will never let him go. Elias Vance had learned to love silence. Not the empty kind that frightened people, but the quiet that came after years of noise. His home sat on the edge of the Ravelin expanse, a thin blue-gray planet that most maps barely named. It was not dangerous, not rich, and not important. That was exactly why Elias lived there. Every morning he woke before the sun rose over the glass plains. He made his coffee by hand instead of using the automaker because he liked the smell. He checked the weather dome, adjusted the heat, and reviewed the data from the small research array he maintained for the colonial network. It was a simple life. A lonely one, some would say. But Elias did not mind. The galaxy was loud. Politics, trade routes, endless arguments between species who could cross light years but still could not agree on simple rules. Elias had spent most of his adult life working inside that noise. When he left, he promised himself peace. That peace lasted 7 years, until the night something stood outside his door. It was not a knock. There was no sound at all. Elias noticed the alert first. A soft amber light blinked on the wall near the ceiling. He frowned. Visitors were rare. Scheduled ones were non-existent. He set his mug down slowly. The sensor did not show a ship, no heat signature from engines, just 2 shapes, small, still. Probably a sensor ghost, he muttered, though his voice sounded unsure even to him. He moved to the door console and activated the external camera. The screen adjusted, focused, clarified. Elias stopped breathing. 2 figures stood just outside the sealed airlock. They were not human. They were small, barely reaching the height of his chest. Their bodies were thin and slightly curved, covered in soft, pale layers that shimmered faintly under the habitat lights. Their heads were large for their bodies, with wide, dark eyes that reflected the camera like pools of ink. They stood very close together. One of them was shaking. The other had placed herself slightly in front, as if trying to protect her sister, even though she was only marginally taller. Elias stared. In all his years on the frontier, he had never seen this species in person. He recognized them only from old cultural briefings. They were called the Tarethi, known for caution, known for isolation, known for never traveling alone, and yet here they were, 2 children, alone. His first instinct was fear, not of them, but of what this meant. Unauthorized aliens on a human-controlled world. No travel beacon, no escort codes, no legal explanation. Helping them could ruin him, ignoring them might kill them. He swallowed and opened the external audio channel. "Hello," he said gently. "Can you understand me?" The sisters flinched at the sound of his voice. The smaller one stepped back, gripping the other's arm tightly. Their skin tones shifted slightly, growing darker. Elias remembered that was a stress response. "I'm not going to open the door yet," he added quickly. "I just want to talk." They did not respond with words. Instead, the taller sister lifted one thin hand and placed it flat against the door. Her fingers trembled. Then, very carefully, she bowed her head. It was not a formal bow. It was the kind a child made when asking for forgiveness before even being accused. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. He checked the environmental readings outside. The temperature was dropping. The planet's night cycle was long and unforgiving. "How long have you been out there?" he asked, though he knew they likely did not understand. The smaller sister's knees bent slightly. She looked tired, exhausted in a way that sleep alone could not fix. Elias cursed quietly. He turned away from the screen and paced the room. His mind raced through regulations, protocols, worst-case outcomes. He could report them. The authorities would arrive within hours. The sisters would be processed, questioned, and relocated. Safely, officially, coldly. He looked back at the screen. The smaller sister swayed just a little. Elias exhaled. "That's it," he said. "I'm not that kind of human." He keyed in a partial unlock. The outer chamber pressurized slowly, safely. The inner door remained sealed. The sisters startled at the hiss of air, but they did not run. They stood their ground, eyes wide. "I'm opening the inner door," Elias said. "Please don't panic." He hoped they could understand tone, if not words. The door slid open. Warm light spilled out into the chamber. The sisters froze. For a long second, no one moved. Then the taller one took a single step forward. Nothing happened. Another step. Still nothing. Slowly, carefully, both sisters crossed the threshold. As soon as they were inside, Elias sealed the door behind them. The sound echoed too loudly. The smaller sister whimpered. Elias immediately lowered himself to one knee, making himself smaller. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." He did not reach for them. He kept his hands visible open. The sisters exchanged rapid clicks and soft tonal sounds. Language Elias did not understand, but emotion was clear. Fear, relief, uncertainty. Their eyes moved everywhere, taking in the walls, the lights, the floor. The larger sister positioned herself again in front, shielding the other. Elias noticed details now, small tears in their travel wraps, dryness along the edges of their skin layers, signs of dehydration. They had been running for a long time. "I'm Elias," he said, tapping his chest. "This is my home." He pointed gently around. The taller sister hesitated, then mimicked the gesture, touching her own chest. She made a sound, short, soft. A name, perhaps. The smaller sister followed, whispering another sound. Elias smiled despite himself. "Well," he said quietly, "welcome." He guided them slowly toward the living area, keeping a respectful distance. He activated the adaptive environment system, letting it analyze their biology through passive scans. The air shifted slightly, becoming more humid, warmer. The sisters visibly relaxed as the atmosphere adjusted. That told Elias more than any data readout could. They had not been comfortable in a long time. He offered them water in a neutral container and stepped back. They stared at it for a moment before the taller sister tested it cautiously. When she drank, her shoulders sagged with relief. The smaller sister drank next, more eagerly. Elias looked away, pretending not to watch. He knew pride mattered, even to children. Minutes passed in quiet. Then his console chimed. An incoming system ping. Elias' heart dropped. The colonial network was scanning the sector. Routine sweep. Automated but thorough. If it detected unregistered life forms, he glanced at the sisters. They were sitting close together on the floor now, wrapped in the spare thermal blanket he had offered. The smaller one leaned into the taller, eyes half closed, trusting him. Elias closed the alert without responding. He manually dampened the external sensors, just enough to blur readings without triggering alarms. It was a risk, a big one. But as he watched the sisters breathe in the warmth of his home, Elias knew something had already changed. This was no longer about rules. This was about choice. Outside, the planet's wind whispered across the plains. Inside, for the first time in many years, Elias was no longer alone. And the galaxy, whether it liked it or not, had just knocked on his door. Morning came slowly on the fringe world. The sun rose like a pale coin, spreading soft light across the glass plains outside Elias Vance's home. Inside the habitat, the air was warm and calm. Too calm, Elias thought, as he stood quietly in the doorway of the living space. The two alien sisters were asleep on the floor. They had not wanted the bed. Elias had offered it gently, showing them the soft surface and clean blankets. The taller sister had tested it with one careful touch, then shaken her head. Instead, they chose the floor, close to the wall, wrapped together in the thermal blanket. They slept curled toward each other, their breathing slow and even. Their skin layers glowed faintly, a sign Elias now knew meant rest. He did not wake them. Instead, he moved to the kitchen area and prepared food. He chose simple items, nutrient paste, warm water, and mild fruit gel, nothing with strong smell or color. He remembered old training lessons. Unknown species often reacted badly to sudden sensory overload. As he worked, his eyes kept drifting back to them. Children, he thought again, not soldiers, not envoys, not criminals, just children who had come to the wrong door and somehow found the right one. When they finally woke, it was the smaller sister first. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. She stiffened when she saw Elias standing nearby. He immediately stepped back and lowered his posture. "Good morning," he said softly. "You're safe." She made a small clicking sound and nudged her sister. The taller one woke at once, alert and tense. She pulled the blanket tighter around them both and watched Elias carefully. He raised his hands again, palms open. "No danger," he said. "Just food." He placed the containers on the floor between them and moved away. The sisters whispered to each other in their musical language. The smaller one leaned forward first, curiosity winning over fear. She sniffed the air, then touched the container. When nothing bad happened, she tasted it. Her eyes widened slightly. She made a happy sound. The taller sister relaxed just a little. They ate quietly while Elias sat at the table, pretending to focus on his own meal. He did not want them to feel watched. After they finished, the taller sister surprised him. She stood, walked a few steps closer, and carefully pushed the empty container toward him. A thank you, Elias realized. He smiled. "You're welcome." He tapped his chest again. "Elias." The taller sister copied him. Sail, she said, her voice soft but steady. Then the smaller one touched her chest. Rin, Elias repeated the name slowly. Sail, Rin. Their eyes brightened. Names mattered. The rest of the morning passed in gentle exploration. Elias let them walk around the habitat at their own pace. They touched walls, lights, furniture. They listened to the soft hum of systems and the distant wind outside. Everything fascinated them. At one point, Rin laughed, a light chiming sound when the sink produced water at a simple hand motion. Sail watched carefully, learning before trying it herself. Elias felt something warm spread in his chest. They were not broken, they were just lost. Later, when they seemed calmer, Elias activated the translation unit. It was old and limited, but better than nothing. He placed it between them on the floor. This helps us understand each other, he explained, though he knew the words meant little. Sail studied the device closely. She spoke into it slowly. The translator buzzed, struggled, then produced a rough human sentence. Place safe, it said. Elias' throat tightened. Yes, he answered. This place is safe. Rin leaned against her sister, eyes fixed on Elias. Sail spoke again. The translator took longer this time. Hunters search, it said. We hide. Elias stiffened. Hunters could mean many things: law enforcement, private trackers, even automated retrieval units. None of them were good news. Who is hunting you? He asked carefully. The device crackled. Not kill, it translated. Take. That was worse. Elias exhaled slowly. He spent the next hours asking gentle questions, learning piece by piece. The sisters' parents were gone. Their home station had been dismantled after a political decision. Their species council had ordered all cultural archives relocated. Sail and Rin had been part of that archive, not as data, as carriers. Their people encoded ancestral memory into living minds, passed through generations. Children were chosen because young minds adapted best. The sisters did not fully understand it. They only knew others wanted what they carried, and they did not want to be taken. They will come, Sail said through the translator, her voice steady but her skin darkening slightly. We slow, you danger. Elias laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. I've been in danger before, he said. I'll manage. But inside his mind raced. If the Tarethi Council learned where they were, they would demand custody. Legally, Elias would have little ground to stand on, but legality was not the same as right. That evening, Elias adjusted the habitat further. He softened lighting, added humidifiers, and changed sound frequencies to better suit Tarethi hearing. The sisters noticed immediately. Rin touched the wall, eyes wide. Good, the translator said. Sail looked at Elias for a long moment. You change world, she said slowly. Elias shrugged. That's what humans do. She considered this deeply. Later, when night fell again, Rin hesitated before lying down. She looked at Elias, then at the bed. Tentatively, she climbed onto it. Sail followed after a pause. They slept better that night. Elias sat alone in the control room, staring at the stars on the external display. His console chimed again, another network scan, closer this time. He muted it. Tomorrow, he knew, choices would have to be made. But tonight, his home was full. And for the first time in years, Elias did not feel the silence as empty. He felt it holding something fragile, something worth protecting. Elias Vance did not sleep that night. He sat in the control room with the lights low, watching the stars move slowly across the screen. The habitat systems hummed softly behind him. Every sound felt louder than usual. He kept thinking about one word: take. Sail had said it calmly, as if it were a simple fact of life. Not kill, not punish, just take. Elias knew that kind of thinking well. He had seen it in councils and committees across human space. Decisions made far away, justified with clean words and cold logic. Children became assets, lives became cargo. Behind him, the door to the living area slid open quietly. Elias turned. Sail stood there, awake. Her skin glowed faintly, a pale silver that meant alert thought. She walked slowly toward him and stopped a short distance away. Cannot sleep, the translator asked for her. Elias shook his head. Neither can I, it seems. She looked at the star display. Big dark, she said. Quiet, that's why I came here, Elias replied. I wanted a place where nothing important ever happened. Sail tilted her head. Now important here. Elias gave a tired smile. Yeah, funny how that works. They stood in silence for a while. Then Sail spoke again, more carefully this time. You afraid? The translator asked. Elias considered the question. Yes, he said honestly, but not for me. Sale's eyes softened. You help anyway. That's also a human thing, he said. Fear doesn't always stop us. She thought about this. In her culture, fear was a warning, a signal to retreat. Acting because of fear made no sense. Humans, Elias knew, confused many species that way. A soft sound came from the doorway. Rin stood there, rubbing her eyes. She padded over and climbed onto the chair next to Elias, curling her legs under herself. She leaned against his arm. Elias froze. Then slowly, carefully, he relaxed. She trusted him enough to touch him. That simple act felt heavier than any law. The next morning, the scan came again. This time, it did not stop at the outer systems. A direct hail request appeared on the console, unmarked but high priority. Elias stared at it for a long moment. If he ignored it, they would escalate. If he answered, everything would change. Sale stood beside him, watching the screen. Rin hovered just behind, her skin darkening with worry. They come, Sale said. Yes, Elias replied quietly. They have. He took a breath and accepted the call. A holographic figure appeared above the console. Tall, slender, not human. The being's features were smooth and carefully controlled. Their eyes were sharp, calculating. Elias Vance, the figure said. You are in possession of Tarethi assets. Elias felt anger spark fast and hot. They're people, he said. The figure did not react. They are cultural carriers. Their presence outside authorized custody is unacceptable. Sale stepped forward. We choose, she said through the translator. We stay. The figure's gaze flicked to her, then back to Elias. Children do not choose, it said. They are protected by decision-makers. Elias leaned forward. Protected or controlled? A pause. Your interference is noted, the figure said. You will surrender the carriers within one standard cycle. The hologram faded. The room felt colder. Rin made a small, frightened sound. Elias stood and turned to them both. No one is taking you today, he said firmly. Or tomorrow, or ever if I can help it. Sale studied his face. You fight, Council? I talk first, Elias replied. Humans are very good at talking. That was not entirely true, but it was true enough. Over the next hours, Elias worked. He pulled old records, human legal frameworks, forgotten clauses buried in interspecies agreements. Humanity had once been the outsiders, refugees, petitioners. They had written rules to protect themselves. Some of those rules still applied. He drafted a response, careful and precise, not defiant, just human. When the council hailed again, Elias was ready. This habitat is under human asylum protocol, he said calmly. The sisters have requested sanctuary. Under shared space agreements, that request must be reviewed, not enforced. The council representative frowned. That protocol is rarely used. Rare doesn't mean invalid, Elias replied. They are not human, the representative said. No, Elias agreed, but they're people. And we don't only protect our own. Silence stretched. Other observers joined the call, shapes and forms from different species, watching quietly. Elias felt their attention like weight on his shoulders. Sale spoke again. We do not run from duty, she said. We run from being silent. That made several observers shift. The council representative's tone cooled. This will be discussed. The call ended. Elias sagged back into his chair. That went better than expected, he muttered. Rin climbed into his lap without asking. She wrapped her arms around his chest and pressed her head against him. Elias froze again. Then he hugged her back, very gently. That night messages arrived, not official ones, private ones, questions, curiosity, quiet interest. Other species wanted to know why humans would risk so much for two small aliens. Elias answered simply, because they asked. That answer spread. Across channels and systems, whispers began. Humans were strange. Humans listened. Humans let children choose. The council delayed their decision. Time passed. Sale and Rin learned more human words. Elias learned more Tarethi gestures. The habitat changed again, slowly becoming something shared instead of owned. A home. Elias knew the fight was not over. But he also knew something important had already happened. The galaxy had seen a human stand up, not with weapons, not with threats, but with open hands. And sometimes that was the most dangerous thing of all. The waiting was the hardest part. Elias Vance had faced danger before. He had argued with officials, stood in hearings, and watched careers end with polite smiles. All of that was familiar. This was different. Now every quiet moment carried weight. The council had not answered for 3 full cycles. No threats, no demands, just silence. Sale said nothing about it, but Elias could see the change in her. She stayed closer to Rin. She watched the sky longer. Her skin shifted more often, darkening at small sounds. Rin reacted differently. She followed Ilias everywhere. If he worked in the control room, she sat nearby. If he cooked, she stood on a chair and watched. When he adjusted the habitat systems, she copied his movements, serious and focused. She was learning. That scared Ilias more than the council ever could. Children should not have to learn how to prepare for being taken. One evening, Ilias found Sail standing by the external window, the stars reflected in her dark eyes. "They watch," she said through the translator. "Yes," Ilias replied. "They do." "You could send us away," she said calmly. "Be safe again." Ilias shook his head. "That wouldn't be safe, not for me." She turned, confused. "If I sent you away just to protect myself," he continued, "I wouldn't be the person I chose to be." Sail considered this for a long time. "Human self is chosen," she said slowly, "not assigned." Ilias smiled. "Exactly." The council call came at dawn, not a simple hail this time, a full session. The holographic chamber filled the control room, layered platforms, floating symbols, dozens of beings watching from different distances. Some were present in full projection. Others watched through distant links. The air felt heavy. Ilias stood at the center. Sail and Rin stood beside him. The lead counselor spoke first. "This session addresses an anomaly," they said. "Two Tarethi cultural carriers residing under human asylum claim." Sail straightened. "We are not anomaly," she said. "We are sisters." A ripple moved through the chamber. Some beings shifted, others leaned closer. The counselor continued, "Human Ilias Vance, you have exceeded your authority." Ilias nodded. "That's possible. Humans do that sometimes." A few observers made soft sounds, amusement perhaps. "You claim partnership," the counselor said. "Explain." Ilias took a breath. "In most of the galaxy," he said, "children are protected by control, decisions are made for them, that works for many species." He paused. "But humans learn something the hard way," he continued. "Protection without choice becomes a cage." The counselor's tone cooled. "You suggest our methods are flawed." "I suggest they are incomplete," Ilias replied. "You preserve culture by storing it. Humans preserve culture by letting it live." Sail stepped forward. "Our memory is heavy," she said. "We carry it, but we want to choose when to share, not be opened." The word opened caused visible discomfort among several species. Rin spoke next, surprising everyone. "I like mornings here," she said simply through the translator. "I like warm air, I like learning words." Her skin glowed softly. "I want to stay." Silence followed, long, deep, uncomfortable. The counselor finally spoke. "Emotional preference cannot outweigh cultural survival." Ilias met their gaze. "Humans survived by trusting emotion," he said. "We are still here because of it." Murmurs spread. An observer from another species spoke up. "What is the human proposal?" Ilias straightened. "Guardianship," he said. "Not ownership, not custody, partnership." "The sisters remain free individuals. They share knowledge when they choose, not before." "That is inefficient," the counselor said. "Yes," Ilias agreed. "And it works." More silence. Then something unexpected happened. A vote request appeared, not from the Tarethi Council. From a neutral block, other species wanted a say. The galaxy was watching. The decision took hours. Ilias did not speak again, neither did Sail. Rin leaned against him, holding his hand tightly. Finally, the counselor returned. "The precedent is concerning," they said carefully. "But it is also compelling." Ilias held his breath. "The asylum claim is accepted," the counselor announced. "Conditional guardianship is granted." Rin gasped. Sail's skin flashed bright silver, joy uncontrolled. Ilias felt his knees weaken. "This decision will be studied," the counselor continued. "Human behavior will be observed." Ilias smiled faintly. "You're welcome to watch." The session ended, the chamber faded. The control room felt very small again. For a moment no one moved, then Rin laughed. A bright ringing sound. She jumped up and hugged Ilias around the neck. Sail followed, wrapping her arms around them both. Ilias closed his eyes. He had not won. He had simply refused to lose who he was. That night the habitat felt different, not like a shelter. Like a home that had been chosen. Outside, the stars burned quietly. Inside, three lives shared warmth, trust, and something rare in the galaxy. Freedom without force, choice without fear. Ilias knew the future would not be easy, but for the first time he felt sure of one thing. The galaxy had just learned something dangerous. Humans did not just give shelter, they gave space to become.